for coming and showing up, and for our million live streamers at home, thank you. We're welcomed by Commissioner Mike Dever, who we're going to get to talk to here in a little bit, but we're going to start with our call to order and our housekeeping items from Sustainability Director Kathy.
Good evening. This is Kathy Richardson, Director of Sustainability. A few housekeeping items for tonight's Zoom meeting. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Please remember to mute yourself during the meeting when you are not speaking. The chat function for this public meeting is disabled, and all chats will go directly to me. All board members, please keep your video on if you can. All others, keep your video off unless you are participating during the meeting. And if you have any trouble, you can send me a chat. The city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting. And just a reminder that there is another board meeting tonight, so we ask that this meeting wrap up by 7:15. And I'll turn the meeting back to Ben.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So our first element up tonight is just to approve our agenda. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at that, and as we've started doing, we've outlined hopefully the time slots that these things will take to keep us on track. So is everyone able to look over the agenda? Did anybody have comments, questions, queries, edits that they'd like to see? Okay, hearing none, so I don't think we need do we need a motion in a second?
Yeah,
yes?
we do.
Would anyone please move to approve the agenda?
Move.
Okay, that's a
Second.
yes, thank you. So first from Nancy and second from Mosen.
Okay.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay, meeting agenda minutes are approved. Excellent. So we're going to take a pause on approving our minutes from the last meetings. And I think also the letter that was sent in that was thinking about, to ask the city manager about the greenhouse report for the climate plan. And we'll put that off until our next meeting. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, the minutes will be on the next meeting agenda. So there'll be three sets of
meeting minutes.
And I do apologize. I feel terrible. I'm doing the best I can with the schedule I have right now. But we'll have those three sets. The letter that you mentioned to the city manager was already sent to the city manager.
Right.
So that was approved by SAB and was delivered to the city manager.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So on to D, then. We invite general public comment. I didn't see anybody in the waiting room, Kurt. I don't know if anybody, there's no one here in person, and I didn't see anybody in the Zoom. So barring anyone piping up that I didn't see, we'll move on to our staff report from Kathy.
Again, Kathy Richardson, Director of Sustainability. I do want to just say briefly that I apologize if I'm jumping all over the place. I hope I cover everything I need to. If not, I will follow up with an email and get you some more information. I'm going on very little sleep here. But you know what? The baby's the cutest thing ever. So it's all worth it, right?
You're doing awesome.
Okay, so a few things I did want to mention, because last meeting we talked briefly about the possible changes for the Sustainability Advisory Board. So if some of you may have noticed that on our future agenda for the City Commission, there is an item on this topic for May 7th. So Tuesday, May 7th, there's going to be an update on the volunteer boards and commissions structure, the procedures, the policy, and the code of ethics. So just wanted you all to know. Also on the future agenda.
Kathy, can I just ask a quick question? So yeah, there were three elements that got pulled up. Does this sound like that May 7th meeting will just be about those first two then? Because SAB was kind of the third one, wasn't it? The procedure and the policies were the first two?
Yeah, the first one is the structure of volunteer boards and commissions. So that includes Sustainability Advisory Board and all the other advisory boards or commissions that are part of this rework that's happening, or the recommendation that's going to go to the city commission, right? But also with that packet, it wasn't only about the structure of those boards and commissions. It was also about what are the procedures going to be for those boards and commissions, what are the policy of an advisory board and commission, and what's that code of ethics that goes along with for those groups as well. So there's 4 components that the commission will receive an update on.
Okay. And those recommendations from city staff won't be available until the packet for May 7th. Is that right?
Yes, usually if you're not aware, the city commission agenda packet will post the Thursday in the late afternoon or early evening prior to that meeting.
Right.
So we're talking about the May 7th city commission meeting, so it would be that prior Thursday that the packet would come out. And as soon as it does come out, I mean, I'm happy to share that through email with all of you.
Okay.
No problem with that. I also wanted to share on the future agendas items for City Commission, May 14th, so it'd be the following Tuesday. We're going to have a presentation on the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. So it's going to be the latest version of that. This presentation and item to the City Commission is not for them to consider adopting the plan. So this one is a presentation so that we can, share all the information and the plan structure and so forth and what the next steps are, and really kind of, it's almost like a work session, and hear what questions the city commissioners have. Obviously, this is an item that public comment would be received, so City Commission would allow for public comment, and if Sustainability Advisory Board wanted to, I know we've been talking about it maybe in the subcommittee of providing some sort of letter or some sort of communication, or somebody would want to be here on behalf of the Sustainability Advisory Board. That's something that maybe you'll want to start working on for your next board meeting. Would be the Wednesday prior, right? The 8th. Let me make sure. Let me make sure you still have one more. Yes, you have May the 8th as the next meeting. So you have one more time you come together if you do want to, as a board, communicate anything to the City Commission during that presentation of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. I think there will be some mention there. Oh, and it's coming as a presentation. The next step would be for this plan to go back to the County Commission, and the County Commission will consider its adoption. Once the County Commission adopts this plan, then the county will start working with all the cities in Douglas County to get it on the agenda of their city commissions or councils. So it will come back to City Commission for consideration of adoption after the County Commission has taken action, if that makes sense. So first County Commission, then City Commission. It'll go to Eudora, Baldwin, et cetera. I know that during that presentation, we'll probably have Kim just briefly mention open space plan, but for those that have been following that conversation, the open space plan was approved last week. So that's the County Commission that approved the open space plan. That's a plan for all the county, though. So we're going to start kind of figuring out, what the city's role is in the open space plan, how we can be a partner with our county, and so forth. I did already confirm, but I had it on my list of things, that the Sustainability Advisory Board letter to the city manager regarding the annual report of Ordinance 9744 was submitted to the city manager and the assistant city managers. On the single-use plastic bag ordinance, I did want to share, so you're probably all aware that House Bill 2446 did pass the Senate, and it has been moved over to the governor. So it's now in the kind of governor's desk, and we have submitted a letter, the city of Lawrence has submitted a letter to the governor asking her to consider veto the House bill. I know a few of you have reached out and you're doing the same, and others are communicating with the governor as well. I did provide a copy of that letter from the city of Lawrence that was signed by the city manager on your agenda, so you can see what was stated there. We're still doing a lot of outreach and education on the single-use plastic bag ordinance, so that work keeps moving on until we hear otherwise. But I did want to share, so last meeting I shared our first video that was produced with the reusable bags, and we have a second one, and I'm hoping that the sound is gonna work for this one, but something looks different. But this is our second video, and it features our mayor. For those of you on Zoom, just let me know if you hear the audio or not.
Hi, I'm Bart Littlejohn. I'm the mayor
Yep, awesome.
of the city of Lawrence. So this is my bag. I take it with me everywhere. Mostly it lives in the back of my car, so I don't forget it, because I forget a lot of things. So, which is convenient because I use it all the time, and I have been so impressed with the city of Lawrence that since this has started in the beginning of March, that it has gone seamlessly, and people have picked it up and adapted it. So there's many ways that you can be sustainable, and this is just one of the easier ways that is provided to you. I know that overarchingly it doesn't seem like a lot, but every little bit helps. And so if you can go ahead and come on board and join us in our sustainability measures, I know that we can make a world of difference.
What do you think?
Oh, let's go.
Awesome. Well, there's.
Which one does he actually shop at, Dillon's or Checkers? That's like the eternal question for our neighborhoods, at least.
Yeah. All right, so that is the second of 4 videos. So there's still one that's coming out that's going to feature Ben Sykes and his family. So we'll stay tuned for that
In
one.
advance. Last night, as part of the discussion, we're trying to make a script from Liam was whether we could talk about Pokemon. There is a garbage Pokemon, apparently. So I think it could be, yeah, could be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kathy, I have a question about the governor, about the bill.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, because I should be versed in this. The 3 options are she vetoes it, she signs it, or she does nothing. And isn't that right? After a certain amount of time, whether or not she's signed it or not, it becomes law? Is that, somebody
I
know?
would need somebody from the city attorney's office.
I believe that's true.
Does anybody know
No?
the length
I
of
don't know
time?
for a fact, but I believe it's
All
true.
right, well, this says she got it on April 5th. So if we ever figure out what that clock is, that might be wise to know when the window, whether she signed it or not, it would become law. Cool, thanks. Sorry,
And I can follow up with information on that.
okay,
Yeah, I'll write it down
thank you.
to see what the next steps would mean.
She could do a pocket veto, no?
What's that?
She could do a pocket veto, couldn't she?
What's that?
You just put it in your pocket and don't do anything until the session is over, and I don't know if it's legal in
Session's
Kansas.
already over, though.
So, until the next session starts, I mean. I think that was one, I've read there's ways that governors can do this
Okay.
kind of thing. So, it's a way to indirectly deal with it without directly dealing with it.
dealing with it.
Correct.
So this would probably be wise for
I don't
us
know,
to
yeah,
figure
I
out
see if that's
what
a
the
possibility in
options are.
Kansas, but I do know it's at the federal and state level, many places, it's a possibility, so.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to derail your.
Oh, no, that's All good. All right, just really quick on Earth Day. So we do have an Earth Day proclamation for the City Commission meeting next Tuesday. So April the 16th is their third and final meeting for the month of April. So that's when the proclamation will be. I'll invite any of you if you want to come on down. Proclamations are usually at the beginning of City Commission meetings, so please come join me. I do know that Will Haynes from the Watkins Museum of History will be here too. They are the ones who are leading the Earth Day Fair at South Park and getting all these partners together. So that's great. And then an invitation to Friends of the Caw has gone out.
That's for the Kansas Riverbank, or no, sorry.
For just proclamation, just to get the folks that are heading up some of those activities. I did want to mention just really quick here, I'm going to share again. Hope you all can see this. Our Earth Day page for the City of Lawrence. We always maintain some Earth Day, just Earth Month tips, I guess, but these are tips for year-round. For people, but I did want to mention some of those activities are on here. Their river cleanup is coming up also on April 20th, like the Lawrence Earth Day Fair. The river cleanup is in the morning. I'm sorry we missed the start time, but it's 9 a.m. to 1. And there is an RSVP, so when you click on this link, it will take you to where you can submit your name that you're coming down. So we are one of the partners with Friends of the Caw on this. It's always fun. So come on down, picking up trash and recyclables. And then the Lawrence Earth Day Fair is in the afternoon. I had mentioned last month we expanded it by 1 hour, so it's from 1 to 4 p.m. And we've got a lot of folks already lined up for that. Oh, looks like it wants me to go to a Facebook page. This Facebook event has been shared widely, and I know we've got a lot of people excited about that event. Wakarusa Wetlands celebration happening on April 21st. There's a lot of information there. And Trails That Connect Us is another event that's happening. If you know of an Earth Day event that I don't have posted on here, please let me know so I can get it up on there. We definitely want to get the word out and have people participate. Really quickly, just to confirm, June 8th is when our electronic recycling event will happen at Free State High School. More information will start being sent out to the public about that event happening. And then just a reminder that we are in budget season, so we're starting, all the departments starting to work on our budgets. CIP work happened first. Now it's the department budgets that we're working on due next month. And we'll be having lots of discussions with the City Commission about budgets. I don't know if the sustainability budget, as you all know, is pretty teeny tiny. Under 200,000. There's not a lot there, but I do want to remind everybody that a lot of the sustainability work is done by the other departments that have those big funds. So, when the water treatment plant, comes to commission to request $3 million for some sustainability upgrades and work on the project, that is where that funding is. It's in the MSO, Municipal Services and Operations Department. If you didn't attend the City Commission meeting a couple meetings ago, there was a great presentation also from our Municipal Services and Operations Department staff and some of the project leads on the MSO campus. So they started talking about how they are going to incorporate our sustainable capital projects policy into that project, even though design work started prior to January 1st of 2024. As you know, that was kind of when commission approved, and it was implemented by January 1st, where we're building any new facility would be LEED Gold. Well, they presented how they're going to incorporate these LEED standards and the funding that goes along with it. So that money does not sit in the sustainability budget. It sits in the MSO budget. So I just want to clarify that there's a lot of sustainability funds throughout multiple departments. I think that's it for me. I know I had a follow-up with, there was a question about if there was any other opportunity to comment on the Boston Crossing project, but I do not have an answer for that. So I will still follow up on that one.
Thanks.
I think that was from last month, so I apologize. Thank you. Any questions? Good.
Quick comment.
Yeah, go for it, Dan.
This is SAB member Stan Rasmussen. In Kansas, the governor must sign or veto legislation within 10 days of the day following transmittal of the bill to the governor, or it becomes law without her signature. There is no pocket veto in Kansas. Some states have
5
it, some
days.
states don't. But Kansas, it either gets passed, vetoed, or if she doesn't do anything, it's passed.
Right, I thought that was the case.
So you're,
So it was transmitted on the 5th, so we got 5 days. I assume it's 10 real days, not just 10 working days.
10 days of the day following transmittal.
Okay. So the next week will be the week to watch for what happens with the
There you go.
ban on bans.
Okay.
And we are going to have a short discussion at our meeting this week. Kathy brought this up at the end about a letter that we might send to City Commission talking about sustainability positions. The last couple of years, I think we've been strong advocates particularly for a data analyst position for the Sustainability Office, because you get asked for a lot of data, including by us. But also, I think you raise a really good point, Kathy, that there's a lot of sustainability work going on across the entire city staff. Mm-hmm. And it's not clear to me that that's all getting aggregated and quantified and put together. And that could be another great opportunity, I think, with a data analyst to trumpet all this incredible sustainability work that's going on in other departments and often are asking you for help and things like that. So we're going to get a little chance to talk about that. But first, we're going to start, I think, our core agenda items with a sustainability conversation with Commissioner Mike Dever. So I don't know that we had a specific agenda, but I think we'd love to hear more about your perspectives on sustainability and given your background. And we know you had, you played a role in the creation of this too. So I think we're interested in your, talking with you about where you think sustainability generally for the city can go, but also what our board can do better and how it might, evolve as we review the things that are going on.
thanks. Ben, I'm not really prepared to
Okay.
riff, shall we say,
Yeah,
but
sure.
I would prefer to get questions. But if you'd like me to just talk a little bit, I'd be happy to, but I don't know exactly kind of what you're looking for as far as my, opinions relative to the city, because I've only had 4 months to form the most recent ones about the city, because as citizens, we don't get a lot of, inside information to stuff. You have to attend a lot of meetings or, read a lot of conversations that are written down or watch them online subsequent to really stay in touch. So it's hard to, but I was a part of the whole push to hire the first sustainability coordinator. It was important to the city at the time. I think we were all kind of seeing the impacts of ignoring some of the issues that we as a city had. And so I think we felt compelled to have somebody to help us save energy more than anything else. How we as a city could be more sustainable so that we could behave in a way that we wanted others to behave, not tell other people to do things and then, ignore them ourselves. I think that was the first thing in mind as a person who's the environmental person. I think you need to behave the way you expect others to do. And so for me, that was part of the plan of having a coordinator, was to try to get us into the best practices available at the time.
Yeah.
And then also shine a light on sustainability as a thing, not just the negative consequences, but the positive consequences of doing so, which is, energy efficiency, saving money, saving water, saving electricity, saving the planet, ultimately, which is what we're after. But that's a long-range goal. But, there's all these other savings that, lead up to that. So, my goal was to just kind of be someone who can transition the city from maybe zero understanding of the impact of electricity, climate, energy use, consumption, and sustainability into best management practices as a city. I think that's kind of was the step, and I think they've already done so. When I read all the information provided, there's all these goals, and oftentimes, sustainability is one of them, which would never have been the case before this. So it's good to see, but it's also, I feel sometimes we don't get down to the nitty-gritty on the issues of sustainability. We just kind of put a label on it, and one of the things I want to see is more information to the public, is to not just it's better, but why it's better. Is it saving us money? Is it saving us CO2 emissions? Is it, is it somehow saving a neighborhood from having to listen or deal with, some sort of negative environmental consequence? That's what I want to see. But when we're, as Kathy was saying, budget season's all about, paring things down to the lowest common denominator. And so what I'd like to do is maybe raise the level a little bit, because I think we've already got everybody along. Back to the plastic bag issue, I think modifying people's behavior is immensely difficult. And I'm shocked at how little pushback I've received as a city commissioner since it's been. I really am. But I mean, I'm not, but I am, because, people are complaining about a lot of things, but this isn't one of them. So maybe we've distracted them with all of our other issues. I couldn't say, but honestly, for me, it's really, makes me happy that this is not something we're fighting about. This is something that we have kind of agreed to, and we're doing our best to manifest. But there's budgets, and there's simplicity, and there's things that have to get past commissioners and past the upper level staff. And, in order to make those things important, like another FTE, for example, I mean, it has to be driven by some sort of metric, and I think that's kind of how the city's driving, is, using budgeting tools now online. So, I mean, people can weigh in on this way more than they could before, but I was just looking at the agenda, and I thought about this, and I thought, getting one person was hard enough. And sitting here tonight, I would like to help do more, but I think it's really important last time just to show that, how important these changes have been to the city and how it's impacted us, as an operation and as a beacon of somebody, of cities trying to do it right. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for starting.
Yeah.
So I just open it up to anybody on the board. I think, in the spirit of questions, and that we have you for a limited amount of time. I don't know if others had questions in Zoom world or here. Yeah, Nancy has a real hand up.
So I'd like to hear what you would like to see our board do to contribute to increasing sustainability in the city. How would you like us to work with the City Commission to improve sustainability?
Gosh, I feel like we're doing a pretty good job, honestly. All kidding aside, to my point, to the question, I see this as one of the most important points in a decision-making tree that the city makes every time. So when you have a decision to make, are these things being adhered to or followed, or are they a part of this formula? So I think we've already made sustainability a key component. Wouldn't you agree, Kathy?
Yeah, it's one of the commitments in the strategic plan.
That's right. So, in my opinion, after reading this, I wasn't a part of building the strategic plan, but when I was running for office, I tried to really understand what it was all about. And, my understanding is it's one of the key components. So if it's not, if it's not good, then we have to consider, another option perhaps. So in this instance, when you add up all of the costs, or should say, the plus and the minuses, sustainability is one part of the equation, which was never a case. So I believe, honestly, it's really, we're doing a good job. Now, how do we do better? I think you brought it up earlier. I think we do a poor job of communicating to the public of all of our great successes as a city and as a board and as a community. For example, recycling, you know, there's this ugly myth out there, how much waste is out there, how much garbage is thrown out, how many people are feeling, you know, deflated because recycling goes to the landfill anyway. And, you know, that's a myth in Lawrence. I mean, you know, I think 90% of our stuff is collected is recycled, and 99% of that is recycled and reused. So it's like we have one of the best waste streams possible on, you know, out there, at least in the region I know of. And, you know, we should be championing the fact that we created this thing, you did it, you implemented, and we're generating some of the top-notch, you know, recyclable materials. You know, we need to talk about that. Other goals, which I've not been a part of or even know about, that you have been a part of, you know, what kind of things we've done. And I know that I read The Flame, you know, every month, but I think there might be more effective ways, maybe a way to communicate with the city and to make sure people understand that you guys are doing things that are making a difference in the community. And so for me, I think it's messaging all the things we've done in the last, whatever time you've been a part of the board, and talking about it and getting it out there, because I think then commissioners and then city managers and city staff can see the value of what you're doing, and perhaps, you know, add to the cost, meaning the operational budget of it, so that we can do more. I mean, that's kind of, I mean, we've already been successful, I believe, Kathy, and, you know, I don't know if there isn't any reason why if there's no reason to do more, then we shouldn't, but I believe there's obviously more we can do outside of, like, for example, waste reduction, but energy consumption, I think we've really nailed that pretty well. And the LEED standards, for example, I know all of our MSO operations are really, you know, striving for the highest level LEED that we can get without costing too much, and, you know, that's the kind of thing that makes a big difference to outsiders, for sure, in the way others evaluate our city. And hopefully the residents will understand what that means, but I understand, and it's, you know, it's a pretty important thing. So those in the sustainability world, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I'd have to spend some more time digging into the details to answer your question more specifically about what more you could do. But so far, I feel like messaging is really important, and then also, you know, showing a sense of urgency on things that we need. If it's an FTE or it's some sort of you know, outreach program, I think it's important to keep in touch with the city manager and, of course, the city commission, because I think everyone up there is very open to anything that you guys have to offer.
Stan?
Hey, Commissioner, thanks for being here tonight. I'd like to ask a follow-up on your comments about our trash and recycling. Do you think there's possibility that there would be support among the commissioners, or would there be interest in looking at trying to expand that out to our commercial businesses and maybe industry in the community? Because I know commercial business owners who would love to be able to recycle stuff from their operations, and it's not an option that's available to them. So I'd encourage you to maybe think about that in the coming years. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it.
I mean, it's been on the table. I don't know what the holdup is. I know some of it was access, some of it was logistics, some of it was equipment. I can't, you know, say why it hasn't happened yet, but I know that the operations that we have and built can withstand more input, so we should be providing it. And since we're providing clean material and it's not going to the quarry, then I'm, you know, all in favor of upping that ante. If it was, you know, 80%, 60% was heading to the landfill, maybe I wouldn't be so eager. But, you know, our operation is, you know, top notch, and we should be leveraging it and generating more materials, because it's going to be better for the planet.
That's great. And then one more question, if I may. Go ahead. I think there's a lot of thought that Lawrence might be going through a fair amount of, you know, some expansion and development from Panasonic and other pressures in our community to maybe grow the boundaries and develop. For me, I'd like to see some of the priorities as we do that, sustainability-wise, to be preserving some open space, making sure that we are thoughtful in trying to interconnect our hiking and biking paths as we grow. And I would just ask you, as you look into the future and see our community perhaps growing and expanding, what would be some of the sustainability, environmental priorities that you might have as we move into the future?
I think overall, the goal of the city should be to maybe acquire that whole floodplain, the Wakarusa floodplain, south of the Wakarusa bank, west of 59, and I think, create an open space environment there to help with any potential flooding, and it's really a difficult place, but I think that's a great place to start. I feel like connecting humans to all of our open spaces is important too, because we've got the Haskell Wetlands, which is beautiful and just a vibrant place since they've been reconstructed and brought to really a really useful point, and with a visitor center and with access. But the problem is there's not enough humans and people on the trails and on these places, and so people feel less compelled to use them because there's not a lot of use. And I think we need to drive more people onto our trails, onto our paths. I think people want to feel safe. We've got a lot of unhoused people urban camping on our trails and our paths and places, and I think that is holding people back from exploring some places right now. And I think creating a green space or sustainable area around our city is very, very easy, but we also have to maintain the areas we have already. We have a wonderful biking path, but we got to start, policing and maintaining those areas so people can use that. But moving forward from that ring, there's an entire section to the southwest of the city that really needs to be somehow maintained so we can manage our flood control area, and then also areas north and west of here that are probably not suitable for development, for subdivisions, for wholesale development, but maybe we could set aside for another section for parkland, especially as we grow to the west and the northwest. But really, for me, open space is a commitment that the city already has in almost any development plan that we put forth, as you know. I mean, the new development right by my house has, I can't count, maybe 30 acres of open space, another 30 acres of public space, and then dedicated land for development. So, I mean, the city's plans kind of take into consideration open space on a piecemeal basis, but I think if we can create more of a holistic plan, that'd be great. The thing I don't want to do is create an urban growth boundary around our city where we create, like Boulder did, where we create this green space where nobody can develop. We kind of create this artificial boundary around our community where all of a sudden it's unsustainable. And, as you know, Boulder's reconsidering those things, and I don't think those are the solution, but I think we can and need to set aside more park, recreation space, and open space as a community, because if we're really going to be developing more densely, those areas are going to be even more important to us in the future. And I think that's something people don't consider right now, like pocket parks. These days, they're not getting utilized because there's maybe 10 or 12 homes surrounding them. But imagine if you go up and there's 40, people living around that same park. It's going to be, far more important to have green space and open space for them in the future. So I think, manifesting those places and then maintaining those spaces and then planning those spaces based on ecological and environmental purposes so that we don't get into fights about flooding, about erosion, about class 1 and 2 soils, and about those issues. And we kind of try to take those out of the formula and really focus on those areas that we as a community want to build in. That's what I think. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Commissioner Dever? Yeah, Dawn.
Hi, Vice Mayor. Thank you for attending our meeting. I did want to point out you inaccurately referenced the Haskell Wetlands when I think that you meant the Baker Wetlands. They are separate and split now because of the South Lawrence Traffic Way. Baker received a ton of money when that traffic way went in. Haskell has received zero. And it is really struggling to maintain the wetlands. They have a lot of problems and little funding to do anything about it. And that's kind of leads into the question that I have. So when we have a comprehensive plan that was jointly developed and agreed upon with the county. A lot of time and labor from a lot of people go into making that, community approved guidance. And then that plan, outlines literally that we must identify, preserve, and protect our wetlands. And then we have elected city commissioners who allow developers to come forward and make major changes to that comprehensive plan to meet profit-driven goals that put our wetlands in jeopardy. What should we do to both protect our wetlands and ensure that our elected officials are holding up the rules and guidance that our community has agreed upon? It makes me wonder, why should we have a comprehensive plan?
Is that a question?
That is a question.
Okay,
like,
so
how can we protect our wetlands, and how can we uphold, ensure that, that elected officials are upholding this guidance that we've created, that, the wetlands are important to us?
Yeah, okay, well, I appreciate what you're saying. I guess I feel like after 40 years of environmental science and studies, I feel like I know a lot about wetlands. I opine on them regularly every week in counties across the country. I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable on the subject, and if you have a specific question, I'd be happy to answer it. But if you're saying that you think that plans are not supposed to be changed, then you haven't been around Lawrence for very long, because this guy's probably changed more plans than anybody I met. And it's part of creating a plan is changing them as necessary. So for me, I guess I'm a little shocked at the question and offended. So I really don't know how to respond.
Yeah, I mean, this is Ben Sykes, SAB Chair. I guess we try and focus on areas where we can understand a little bit more about sustainability, not on specific topics maybe, where we're trying to move the needle, but to understand more about the approach and the.
Well, may I try to rephrase the question?
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of pieces left to go through on this new Boston Crossing development before it can really move forward. But if everything, FEMA changes the map and the Corps approves it, and all of these things go through, what can we do to preserve our wetlands? Then, since you do know a lot about it, then do you have some ideas of what we can do to mitigate it? And just as a quick example to throw in there, the South Orange Traffic Way, I thought it was supposed to have a lot more corridors for wildlife to go through. It's not applicable necessarily to the new Boston Crossing development, but there is no corridor right there at the Haskell Wetlands. It's on either end of that stretch there that kind of crosses the Haskell Wetlands. But so, do you have some ideas of what we can do to ensure that the developer is mitigating in terms of light, in terms of runoff, and this?
Yeah, I can't, again, I apologize. I don't mean to be offended, but it's really about, your question was about, electing leaders that don't follow plans. And, it was an insinuation, I guess, but most importantly, I researched this thoroughly, and the flooding that's occurring on the parcel in question is all man-made. The ditch was built by humans in about 1920. The ditch was created by humans, and all the water was designed to flow onto the parcel in question that you're talking about. The water was diverted and was never originally flowing because it's completely flat. The water it was a man-made mistake to begin with. That parcel of land was flooding because of man, and the Wakarusa River very rarely floods in that area, almost never, because of its height of the walls of the border of the creek bed. And so I'm going to say that I believe that the stormwater that's going to be collected on the parcel under development is going to add to the collection of water to the Baker wetlands. I'm sorry for making that mistake. And also going to add to the potential to maintain the levels of the wetlands for a longer period of time, because we have a 30-acre retention basin of water that's going to be directed into the Baker wetlands, which will be better for the ecosystems rather than worse. Now, if you're concerned about for future flooding, I just said I would like to acquire the land to the west of this parcel, which is highly inundated most of the time and is completely flat and has not been changed directly and or developed by anybody, and really nobody wants to because of the difficult task in doing so. So I think as a city we can be both thinking about development and future and the maintaining and care of our community. And so you can't do one without the other. And frankly, without taxes and without money and without services, this community is not going to thrive. And we need people who are going to be able to live here and who can sustain here. And if we focus more on the planet than we do the people, then we're missing the point of leadership. And as a leader, I think we need places for people to live, and we need places for a wildlife to live. And I think we need to preserve both.
Other questions? I guess, Katie, do you have any?
Go ahead if you want.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So, hi, yes, welcome to our SAB meeting. My name is Kay Johnson, and I'm Sustainability Advisory Board member. So, just to take a step back to what Nancy was referring to, at least I believe what she was referring to was we really have been on the chopping block as far as whether our board has been viewed as effective or not. And in the last discussions, and Stan was on the committee, was that we were not being effective. And part of, because of some of the comments that people were making, including that we didn't have action items at every one of our board meetings. You know, the things that we do, pretty complicated. And so many of the things that we do are through subcommittees, and the plastic bag ordinance, took 4 or 5 years, something like that. So, you know, so we have longevity usually. We're looking at issues that take quite a bit of study and discussion. So as we move forward with, so I took exception to some of the things that were being said because I'm not sure that everybody even understood how we do function. But nonetheless, we do want to be proactive at whatever, comes our way as far as looking forward. So what do you think that we could do to help with that? You had mentioned something about getting more word out to people about what we're doing. And Kathy, as a individual as one, it's very difficult. We'd even talked about a variety of different ways, and she said, I just can't do more right now.
Yeah.
She is it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about getting, having an analyst to help for some of those very issues that we're talking about? I know finding money in the budget is very difficult, and I know that it's not going to be any better this year than it was last year.
Yeah.
But we really do need to look at that so that we can get the word out about what we are doing. What do you think we could do?
Well, I'm not familiar enough with the politics of City Hall. I've only been there for 4 months, so I couldn't say, but I'm learning every day, and I feel like it's important to utilize the resources that we have in the city. I think City Hall has added a tremendous amount of professional expertise to talk to people, to communicate, to outreach, and they're doing a good job. I'm just learning how to use them myself, when I want to learn something or talk to somebody, or how do I, when somebody reaches out and wants a comment, we never had those kind of people. And so I think the first thing is maybe we can leverage some of the time of the existing resources that we have and say, hey, we should dedicate 20 hours, whatever, a month, or whatever it is you need. Let's start out and figure out how much time we need, and then somehow justify the position. I think that's because once you get the people who are already there doing the work and seeing the need, then they'll see, and then that message will be sent that's what I'm seeing is, there's these people in place to help us do our job at City Hall, but it's not really clear who they are, and they're new enough where they're not comfortable just reaching out to people and say, hey, do you need some help? And so I believe we should start with, existing resources we have, reach out to them. I'd be happy to do so and say, hey, let's get 10, 20 hours a week from somebody to help with Kathy so we can do a better job of doing this or that, or at least be more effective in communicating. And then eventually, perhaps we'll create this idea that these are great things and we need another person. And that's kind of what I think it's about. And as I said, the first time in creating the position, you had to create the need, a sense of urgency, and we did so. And I think the next step is showing what we've done and then showing the sense of urgency and the need for another person to be able to effectively communicate what you just said, which is the lack of ownership of City Hall or City Commissioners or understanding of what your board does. Because if it truly isn't necessary, then, you guys are all smart people. You shouldn't be wasting your time on this, and you should be valued. And, if you're not, then that's a problem. So to me, this is not a game. You should be doing important work, and, that's what I think that should be conveyed. So I think you'd start with borrowing some others' time, and I'd be happy to try and endorse that, and then move on to allocating some dollars in the budget, even for a 20 hours position, or move into a full-time. I don't know, but I think incrementally showing the need for a person is the best way to demonstrate it in the past. I hope that's the same way today.
Well, I appreciate that. And speaking of urgency, so I'll go into my next question. We have an ordinance that is for renewable energy goals. And so I have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions for you. So this ordinance was passed, let me just quickly look. It is ordinance 9744, and it was passed on the 3rd day of March in 2020. And as far as I know, there's not an absolute plan to address all of the issues that are in this ordinance. However, of course, the MSO's plan for lead goal, that is certainly part of this whole issue. So that is not to say that the city hadn't been doing anything. The city has done an incredible amount of work toward reducing energy consumption, doing some things even predating Kathy, a lot of the things that you were involved in early on. However, we've kind of come to the point where we haven't been moving forward. In this ordinance is required for a report from the city manager's office, an annual review of progress toward these goals. So that hasn't been done since the ordinance was passed. And we did send a letter to the city manager's office. Now, of course, we're not laying blame to any particular person. Poor Kathy is doing a lot.
The report is on me.
And it is, but it is important to note that if she had some assistance,
it would be done.
Be done, probably.
That's a good point, Kate.
And truthfully, this also really predates Kathy too. So, like I said, I'm not pointing fingers at any particular situation, but this goes back to the staff.
Yeah, so we've created this administrative need through this ordinance, yet we're not fulfilling it, and we don't really have the capacity to do so based on the staffing currently, is what you're getting at.
Exactly. And, part of the reason that the sustainability capital projects was even done was because, we identified, our SAB board identified that transit was not going to be utilizing electricity. They were going to be using natural gas instead. And that is particularly not in line with this ordinance. But there's other things. We can't be everywhere, so we don't know what all other things are being missed. And that's the reason we feel like it's very important to have a staff analyst that can make sure some of those things are not slipping through the cracks. There should be a plan, and I don't know, we've started a subcommittee to start looking at these things with some of our, so the Sustainability Advisory Board is serving at the pleasure of the city commissioners. So we make recommendations to the city commissioners. So we don't know always what the city staff are doing from day to day or what the capital projects are. But we're looking at a few things that we would like to the city commissioners to evaluate as part of that plan. So we started this subcommittee, and the subcommittee particularly was to identify a framework for a plan with strategies, policies, and actions to help get this ordinance on down the line. And so it seems to me that, how can we help the commissioners besides this little subcommittee? Because we're going to make a laundry list of some things that we believe are achievable. But if you notice the dates on this ordinance, which the 2025 electricity in municipal operations by 2035, all energy sectors in municipal operations by 2030. Is that the right one? Did I give you the right one?
These are the renewable energy goals.
2030 for electricity citywide and by 2035 for all energy sectors citywide. Okay, that is extremely short time frame. And so what can we do to help achieve that, and at least to make some plans to start down the road? Now, we're going to do what we think we can to help the city commissioners with some of these options, but we're just looking at things from a technical perspective, and we don't have a lot of direction from the city commissioners on this.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, well, they are lofty and very aggressive goals, but it looks like, I believe the city's already on track for meeting those goals, aren't we, for the city stuff? I thought I read for the 225, the municipal operations?
So, and I know this seat's always awkward because I want to,
No, it's okay.
look that way, but
We
I'm
were
like,
just talking about that the other day. I was wondering, where are we at on that, the 2025 goal?
yeah.
of municipal-
So what Kay's bringing up, I did want to give you a little bit of background. So the Sustainability Advisory Board worked on this ordinance and presented it to the commission along with the sustainability director at the time. The timeline that was recommended was 2050. And the commission at the time wanted more urgency to this topic. And during the meeting, the ordinance was edited with a more aggressive timeline.
Okay.
So I just want to give you a little bit of background.
I'm glad you agree, it's aggressive. Yeah.
Because I do know this board and the sustainability director did do a lot of research and what was doable, what other communities across the nation were doing, what their timelines were. So it was presented as a 2050. So in terms of where we are, that timeline is not realistic. I think we're finding that out as we are completing, right now we're working on the fleet transition plan, and that 2035 it's just, we're not going to have the type of budget. Some of the equipment for even the city fleet is what I'm talking about, not just community-wide, because that's the other component of the ordinance. But just city-wide, some of those heavy-duty trucks, like trash trucks, et cetera, not a lot of options, or affordable options right now. Light-duty vehicles, I think we would get there, but the heavy-duty, there's a big question there, and that's what the information we're getting from the consultant. We did just start, actually 2 weeks ago, we started with a consultant that's leading the way to zero emissions for the transit, that whole operation. And they also questioned me in that first meeting on this 2035, feeling like that's maybe not going to happen, or that's that would be very, very hard. The other thing I wanted to mention is the first deadline of this ordinance is a 2025 for all electricity with 100% clean renewable energy. I believe the intent of the ordinance is that we were truly running on 100% clean renewable energy. Currently, the city of Lawrence does buy wind renewable energy credits. That's not the same thing as saying that we're run by 100% clean renewable energy. So I just wanted to make that clarification, and I know this board and myself, we're passionate about the true where is we're currently getting electricity from a carbon source. So if we wanted to have that goal of going 100% renewable energy on the electricity side, it shouldn't just be a credit thing that we're buying a credit So that's a conversation to have with City Commission, with the community, with our staff. So if the intent, or if it's okay to check off the box because we've bought, enough credits that cover our 100% electricity use, then we're there. I just received a report from Evergy that says we actually bought 108%.
8%, yeah.
So we went over, but we really need to have, if we have the conversation of what it is truly, what we're run by 100%
Sure.
Renewable energy, we're less than 5%.
Less than 5, yeah.
Yeah. We have solar on the new transit hub, that's the new facility. And then we have a small array at the Prairie Park Nature Center that doesn't cover all the electricity there. And we have some solar with some streetlights. But we have a solar-ready facility with the new police headquarters that was built. So it's ready to plug in for some renewable energy there, or solar. And then also our Wakarusa wastewater treatment plant is also ready for a solar. when
Array.
we have funding for that.
For an array, to plug into an array?
Yeah. It is already ready,
Yeah,
set
right, the
up.
building's ready, it just needs to have an
Yeah.
array.
They did the setup at the.
Okay.
So I want to bring those aspects to the conversation because I do feel like a lot of people think we're done with the work here on the electricity side. Other opinions, and I'll let the board speak for themselves, feel like we're not even close.
Sure.
And by 2025, we're not going to have solar on all our facilities.
And
No.
if I could
Was
interject.
that the goal? Was that the actual goal when they made it?
That was
Sorry.
the original
Okay.
goal.
That was, well, not just solar, but whatever electricity.
Yeah, just not
Yes.
credit, but actual renewable.
Right. So I'll just interject. One of the reasons that this is very important is because we have, there's a potential solar, utility scale solar project being proposed in the county. And on numerous occasions, when I've been in a room where this discussion is, many of the complaints from the county residents are that, well, what's the city doing? There are a lot of people in the city. What is the city itself doing to improve renewable energy? So I know there's already discussions. The county residents feel like you're putting this all on us. And the city itself hasn't made commitments to utility scale solar or a plan
The rooftop solar?
for rooftop solar. So there's a,
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go
I
ahead.
want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
We talked
It's
about
okay.
30
Yeah,
minutes.
no worries.
I
Sorry.
just wanna make
All
sure
right,
that-
I got a few more minutes. I got to ride home. I just want to be dark. I don't know what time it gets dark this time.
Oh, okay.
That's all I care
You don't
about.
have somebody coming to pick you up?
No, I'm riding my bike, so.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, these details, the ones about wetlands, there's a lot of specific things that I think.
And I know
reflect-
a lot about, and I'd be happy
know.
to be
And
your
we can
conduit.
get
I could be
out and
your,
talk.
We wanna
but
have
do
this-
not alienate me through negative connotations in
No,
a meeting,
absolutely.
because I'm just going to be direct here. I really like you guys, and I'm your friend, not an enemy, and I think people are wrapped up in trying to create differences, and I think we need to create a welcoming environment for all of us and feel like we're all trying to help the same thing. And to create artificial boundaries between us doesn't lead to anywhere, and I'm going to make sure those don't exist anywhere I'm around. So
Yeah.
that's why I want to address it before I leave. So
Yeah, I mean, the main point too that I just wanted to
Yeah.
flex is that, we have administrative staff like Kathy that are working their tail off. We have people that are city staff but are in
Yeah.
all the departments that are working on sustainability hard. And there's a bunch of citizens that are volunteering their time.
Yeah, I know.
And just like you said, a lot of that's been really successful. And so, whether it's how SAB goes forward from here under the recommendations or whatnot, there's just a bunch of people also in the community that want to be part of the solution, that are willing to work hard, that are trying to come up with new ideas, not just
yeah.
criticize or overlook what the city's
Yeah,
doing.
we haven't done or what we've done. And
We're
so
trying to-
I appreciate that. And to Kay, I want to make your point, no, this is really important. Utility scale solar is really important to the formula here. Kathy just hit the nail on the head. Yet we as a community can't even agree on that. So we're sitting in a room with people disagreeing, and yet we can't agree. And then, we go to another room and they can't agree. It's just a bunch of disagreement about things that are good for our planet and for us, but we just can't agree on the place, the time, or the people. Whatever it is, I can't understand it. So what I hope to do is bring whatever understanding I can from a technical capability to the public so that they can understand that they can, disagree on where, but we need to do it. And we need to come together and pick a spot. And it's not going to be good with everybody, but it's going to be fine. And we as a community need to start encouraging rooftop solar and getting on board and maybe making the power company make it easier for us to do so. That's a whole nother conversation.
Absolutely.
So, we can blame ourselves and the commission and the people in the room, but it's really about our economy and our society, and we need to change people's behavior. Again, I cannot believe how well we've done with plastic bags, but this is a whole nother conversation, and I know this is what the environmental movement's been around for 50 years, and it's about changing people's behavior. And, for me, it's, step-by-step action, behaving the way I want other people to behave. So I don't have a solar array on my rooftop, but, if somebody asked me to, I might. The point is, it doesn't make sense to everybody, but we need to behave as a city, and that's what I told Kathy originally. We as a city need to behave the way we want our society to, and if we are just buying credits to cope, then that's not really the behavior that we're trying to get at, in my opinion. It's about trying to actually make a change. But we're really having our own set of problems, even getting a utility-scale solar array in anywhere near Douglas County, let alone wind turbines. So, let's just be realistic, and, we have our own set of problems to deal with locally. If we want to be green and sustainable, we have to get over those problems. Because if we can't get past our neighbors to do the things we want for the planet, then there's not much we can do. Even as a board or as a commissioner, there's nothing I can do. So I mean that sincerely. Like, I want to take action as well, but there's a lot of things in our way, and we need to join together and work together and not be, worrying about minor issues, but work on the big picture in this instance.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because none of the comments I said are meant to be adverse.
No, I don't mind diversity. I just don't like personalizing things.
No,
Yeah.
and we all know that we're all spending an awful lot of time, so we're not trying to personalize
Yeah.
it. We want to see a plan, and even if the plan is changed, we don't care. We want to see moving
Trust me.
forward.
Plans we wrote in 2008. Changed 6 times since then. I didn't have any part of that. That's just the way plans are.
Right.
Unfortunately, I'm in the seat. I got to make decisions, and I'm going to make good ones because I have a lot of background in this, and I'm going to hopefully represent you guys well. If you give me the information, I'll be happy to do so.
Thanks, well,
So,
we appreciate it.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome, Stanley.
Right.
Oh,
The next main item we had was to talk about the KPI, about trying to look at one for waste reduction that we had talked about. So Kathy, I didn't know if you wanted to lead in. Hopefully I think just about everyone was able to do their homework, but hopefully everyone was also able to read through some of the suggestions that different people had made for, some of the critical things. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, is just have an open conversation. We maybe should only spend about 15 minutes on environmental sustainability KPI.
Yeah,
Waste reduction.
so I don't think we're going to get through it completely today in 15 minutes, but one of the things I wanted you all to just start having a conversation around is you've seen the list of all these suggested strategies to move the needle on waste reduction. You've seen other board members draft some of these KPIs and what they would like it to say and so forth. There's a lot here. Great information, lots of ways that we could move the needle. But for tonight, if we can, I don't know, as you read through all of these suggestions, if in your mind you kind of had a top, like 3 or 4 strategies. We need to start narrowing it down. And I know that some of you came up with not only one KPI, but multiple KPIs. I will let you know that we're going to suggest and hope to recommend to the City Commission for one KPI to be added under strong welcoming neighborhoods for environmental sustainability on waste reduction. I don't think we can do 3 or 4.
Yeah, so Sorry, I don't mean to, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, I just,
Conversation.
rather than us pick one to present to them, I think there might be strength in saying, here are 2 or 3 that we think would be really effective at doing waste management, and here are the pros and cons of those, and then we can let, City Commission is ultimately the decider of these, right? So rather.
Sure, and I do want to clarify the process. The brainstorming that we're doing here at the level of the Sustainability Advisory Board is really to bring some good thoughts and recommendations to the staff that are working on these KPIs. Staff will get everything in a kind of final draft that will go to City Commission. So this isn't Sustainability Advisory Board going directly to City Commission. This is staff asking for help from you all that have lots of areas of expertise in this discussion of what you would like to see. We have talked about, as we prepare some new KPIs and some rewriting of some of the KPIs, that, again, we're going to keep the Sustainability Advisory Board in that conversation. I did hear just recently, too, that there may be a little bit of a tighter deadline on getting some of this information in. So as you know, KPIs in the strategic plan are very tied with our budget, and our budget conversations are going to get started here pretty soon. So if we wanted to add a KPI or wanted to edit a KPI, we really can't be talking about it in November. Budget conversation is going to be over by then. So we need to, in these next kind of 2 or 3 meetings. But I just, again, this was when Ben asked me, hey, what can we do to help staff on the sustainability front? I said, I need help with the KPIs. So, and that I can bring back to whoever I overlap with. So strong welcoming neighborhoods, I overlap, that's an outcome, and environmental sustainability is the commitment. That's Jeff Crick, who's the Director of Planning and Development Services. If we're going to edit, any of the vehicle miles traveled or the renewable energy stuff, that's Connected City. That's Melissa Sieben. She's the Director of Municipal Services and Operations. So if it's okay, all of these are great. As you probably saw, there's some common themes here. As you reviewed everybody's suggestions, just kind of talk amongst yourselves of what you think are top items that need to move forward. Do you want to narrow it down anymore, or you want to just present this to staff as is?
The things that jumped out to me, I'll just start this since we're all here. One of the things that's in a lot of these, right, is composting. Mm-hmm. Another element that came through, of course, is diverting waste of different kinds, right, that includes composting. But there was food waste that was raised. There was, the proportion of recycling that we could be doing. And I think some of these are more, already framed as KPIs or might already have data that we have, whereas others are processes that we could engage in to accomplish those KPIs. So I don't know what others, that's just the things I saw.
Yeah, this is Catherine Morris, SAB member. I did notice a lot was on food waste composting, and I do think it's something that was kind of several different comments about it, and it was a large chunk of the waste that is generated, right? So if we're wanting to tackle an area, let's tackle an area that is causing a lot of the waste to begin with. I know there was some comment earlier about what percentage of recycling is actually being recycled, and I appreciate that Vice Mayor Devers pointed out that we're actually doing a really good job on that already. So maybe that's not a great area for us to focus on because we're already recycling such a large percentage of what is going into the recycling process. Except for, as Stan pointed out, maybe we could then bring commercial enterprises into that if they're not able to access the single stream recycling, since it's working so well, let's go ahead and see if we can bring them in. Maybe that's not easy, but maybe that's a relatively easy one to start with, to think about as an initial KPI adjustment.
Other thoughts?
Nancy's got
Nancy.
Yeah, I like Catherine's ideas about the focus on the food waste, because I think it also plays into what Mike Deaver mentioned with respect to getting the word out. So if we get the word out that we can compost food waste, we could educate people about doing it at their own homes, as well as trying to do some piece of it as a city, because it's a big endeavor to do a full city composting of food waste. But at least we could engage with citizens to do composting in their own homes and sort of get that word out. And I think it kind of works in with what Mike Deaver was talking about. So I really like to try to put that together.
So this has just been, I'm just going to be not negative about it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be one of the hardest to get data on. Like what the KPI would be might be the number of homes that we have sign on to a program for it, for example. But I think it will be very difficult in comparison to some of the data that's in the presentation that we got about municipal services waste quantities. It will be very difficult to get that from households. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it or that the KPI shouldn't be related to that. That's just my only thought in thinking about that.
I'm thinking that it would reduce total waste in the landfill if the food doesn't go there. So it would show up that way.
Okay.
I like the idea of counting households that sign on, because if they sign on, then we don't know how much, as you said, we can't quantify how much they're reducing their waste, but we can estimate based on sort of the percentage of food waste that a typical household generates as a percentage of their total waste, and then just make an estimate based on that.
I did want to add, just because I've worked in this space before with the EPA guidance on developing a recycling rate or diversion rate for a community. And they, as part of the guidelines, it tells us certain things that cannot be counted towards the diversion rate. And for some reason, there's a lot of communities that fought this, but backyard composting was one that was not allowed as part of the calculation, just because you don't know the amount. And somebody could say they have a backyard composting bin, but they're still throwing a lot of food waste in their trash or whatnot. But for whatever reason, it's one of the things outlined, just like construction and demolition waste is not counted as MSW, like things like that in the guidance document. They did list out, or like storm debris, you can't count storm debris towards your diversion rate when it's a actual storm we respond to with lots of trees down and so forth. But backyard composting is one of those things that was out of the equation.
Kathy, I was actually going to ask about your commercial thing. So I'm just curious on how that gets factored in, but I didn't want to interrupt you, Stan.
I would like to ask Kathy a question about the food waste.
Yeah.
Kathy, what's the impediment, or what prevents us from being able to put food waste into the yard waste containers and compost food waste now? Why can't we do that now?
Yeah.
What's the challenge there?
Yeah. So just trying to make sure I cover all the bases. But one of the things that we've been talking about for quite a while is so there's different permits from KDHE for operating compost facilities. So the city for a very, very long time has had the yard waste only permit for the compost facility. We did recently, and I know Katie pointed it out in some of the materials she submitted, that there was a grant that the county had received, and that was for a pilot program on food waste composting, and we did use the city's compost facility. So we talked to KDHE about, well, we started the program with them understanding kind of the amounts, small amounts of food waste that we're going to collect, but wanting to step into that broader permit for handling food waste. So, we've kind of gone through that process, and that's in place. But for a long time, we just had a yard waste permit. The other thing is that there are some space limitations in our compost facility. For some of you who have visited over the weekend, and apparently it's quite booming, last month, there were big lines of residents coming to pick up compost and wood chips. But that pad that we have is an 8-acre, which is pretty much well utilized. If we bring the food waste component, which would be awesome for the composting process, right, that is needed and would probably speed up some of those compost windrows that we have there. So if we brought that in, we'd probably need a larger pad. So we are looking at what is needed in terms of a bigger type of facility. I do want to also mention, so in the sense of collection, Stan, you mentioned the yard waste carts. Could those be relabeled to say organics and people just put, their food waste in there along with their yard waste? That's what a lot of communities do when they transition to the food waste program. The city for a long time also had the yard waste program just running during the growing season, and we actually expanded that year round for the possibility of doing just that. When we added organics, that we would food waste is a year-round event. Yard waste, there may not be as much yard waste during the December, January, February months. So I just kind of want to explain the process of some things that have been moving along and changing with collection in order to set us up for that moment where if we have the permit, if we have the collection vehicles and the staff, and we already have the containers, so we kind of containerize that yard waste. Prior to these yard waste carts, people would just set out their yard waste in some of their personal cans or like yard waste bags and stuff, but this identifies a container for it. So with all that, we are currently stepping into a solid waste master plan this year. I've mentioned it in meetings before. This is where conversations of whether we can expand and what it would take to expand into commercial single stream recycling. That's a topic that's going to be discussed. Another topic that's going to be discussed is food waste composting for City of Lawrence, and possible other pad sites for a compost facility, and what that would entail if we, went through the process with KDHE to permit either an additional site or probably more logically one larger site that we can move into. So all of those things are or have been in the works for a while. That was a long answer, but all those components are important to have the collection ability year-round, to have the proper permits to operate a compost facility that can accept food waste. And the outreach and education, I don't even mention that. I mean, that's a given. We'd have to do a lot of that to make sure programs that have food waste collection with their yard waste have high contamination versus just yard waste programs. But with good outreach education, getting the messaging out, and you can kind of correct that and make sure with good labeling on the cart and so forth, that people put the right thing in there so that the city doesn't incur additional costs just trying to take trash or things that don't belong out of there.
Sorry, just ask a clarifying question real quick. So we can't count home composting as diverting waste, but if the city implements food scrap composting, even if it was like a drop-off site where families or whoever could drop off their food to be composted by the city, that would count as waste reduction, like if we were quantifying it?
Yeah, and diversion rate for the guidance document we have from the EPA, if we collected the food waste or if there was a drop-off, kind of like City of Olathe has set up, and people just drop off their food waste at a location, that would all count towards diversion, yes. And we would have the numbers. We wouldn't be estimating like, oh, we think there's 300 houses that are backyard composting at X amount of cubic yards. You just don't know.
That's a really good point. That's a great question. Other thoughts on this KPI? Or on other KPIs? I just wanted to bring up quickly, I think Stan had brought it up and others, about commercial recycling. And in my conversations with KU, their waste management program was also really interested in combining what they're doing with the city's efforts as well. I don't know how that would play out in terms of waste diversion if all of a sudden we start to get all of the recycling that commercial entities along Mass Street or everywhere else that participates go into our recycling, how that would play out. But I do think it's another opportunity to really make an impact on that waste reduction.
Actually, Dawn has her hand up, and
Oh,
then
yep.
I'd like to.
Dawn.
I have a question.
Dawn, go ahead, and then Kay.
Kathy, I don't know if I'm thinking a lot about construction debris and looking at that document that you shared that's from August of 2023. I don't see construction waste in some of those pie charts, but so do you know like how much of what is going through the city to landfills is construction waste, and any ideas about how that could be mitigated? I don't have any answers. The issue kind of came to mind to me when we were fighting a landfill out here where I live, but the stuff has to go somewhere, and just, I don't know, it's an interesting topic to me that how do we minimize construction waste and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
We didn't need to get into a big conversation, but just wondered if Kathy had some comments on that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I mentioned before, our guidance documents from the EPA state that construction and demolition is not to be counted as MSW. I should have clarified what that means. It's municipal solid waste. So construction and demolition is not part of that pie graph of municipal solid waste, but it is a type of waste. It's just not MSW of what the calculation for the community would be with recycling and so forth. There are a lot of programs in cities that have been successful with C&D recycling type of opportunities, whether they run facilities or they contract with somebody else. City of Lawrence staff, I know we have visited a few C&D recycling facilities in our region and trying to see what the feasibility would be, especially because a lot of projects that are starting up in Lawrence want to get their LEED certification, and so they're looking for opportunities to recycle any construction and demolition that's happening at that site. So we have been looking at, and that's probably going to be part of the master plan as well. You know, how can we divert some of the C&D from the landfill so that it can be utilized moving forward, so recycled. Good question.
And
Okay.
I have a real quick comment. So my company already does commercial recycling, but we pay for it, but we don't use the city. So I don't know, I know it would be more convenient to us if it was a city commercial operation, but we do contract with a separate company to pick up the commercial recycling that we do is really much like the residential recycling. It's more of the office type recycling. So, but don't know that those folks would come down into the heart of the city of Lawrence, whereas we're out on the outskirts of town.
I think KU also has a contract with a recycling company for the large scale.
Yeah, there's not a again, a city-run commercial single-stream recycling program that is offered to all these different type of businesses. We do have covered the schools, so I should mention that, in the city facilities. But I want to mention that there are others that can come into town to offer single-stream recycling to commercial entities. So Honey Creek is one of those companies that is in town. They even have some customers here in the downtown area. So they are coming in here to offer those services. So we did not say that nobody could come in here to provide that service. And actually, when Waste Management moved their containers out of commercial locations where they had a lot of single-stream recycling, that was their decision. They could have continued their program here in Lawrence when we started our curbside recycling for residential customers. So just to put it out there. I'm hearing composting and food waste is a common theme and something that should move forward. I'm hearing a lot of talk around commercial recycling, so that's important. Is there another one that just kind of feels?
I have a question. You know, we know that, well, to begin with, I was looking at city operations and then residential commercial operations as two different ideas, but do we know how much contamination causes loads to be rejected when it goes to the landfill? And I'm talking about both city and commercial and residential altogether. Do you
You mean
have-
contamination to the recycling stream and then
Right,
it goes to the
because-
landfill, or?
Because the recycling, if there's too much contamination, then a load can be rejected. And so my question is, do we have a problem? I know that was pointed out in the Kansas City, and their goal is they have evidently quite a bit of contamination. I think that is one of the issues that KU brought up with residential hall recycling. There's so much contamination, which a lot of it is getting the message out and, you know, follow through with the people that are doing it. But
I do want to respond to that. So when we worked with the contract with HAM Waste Services for the MRF component, that's the material recovery facility, so that's where we drop off our single stream recycling. We do have a full negotiated contract that does address certain levels of contamination, and when it's so much contamination that it's like a rejected load, they would call city staff over. So, you know, there's some coordination. They can't just reject a load and they take it to the landfill and bill us later or anything like that. It's a situation where a city official would go to the site and take a look at the load and, you know, come up with an agreement. We can take the load back ourselves. We can do, you know, there's going to be options there for us. But I did want to say, since the start of our negotiated contract, which it also just renewed recently, there has not been one load from the city of Lawrence considered a rejected load.
so that's not a problem here. That's good.
Sound like it.
Yeah.
I want to be cognizant of our time here because I only have about 10 more minutes. And I think this is a great place to start this conversation, not to finish it.
Yep.
But I'm also aware that we had discussed, we definitely want to move the conversation about support, a letter of support for an analyst position forward as soon as possible for the Sustainability Office because budget discussions are already going on at the city level. And so if, with others' permission, I would like to just go ahead and move on to that. And unless anyone has really important aspects of updating people on the subcommittee work, that we maybe can share those across email or something else, just to be cognizant of everyone's time. Is everyone okay with that? All right, thank you. So yeah, so the next agenda item that we had up was just kind of re-upping what I think we did with the vice mayor earlier, which is that we really want to support the idea and the funding of a second FTE position, or at least some sort of a position to support Kathy, and particularly the data analyst. Hopefully people were able to read the letter that Stan helped develop. I think that was 2 years ago, now been passed over twice on budgets. but is linked there in the agenda items. And so I just open that up to anyone that has things that they feel are important to get in the letter. That I heard a few mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to bring that up for our last 10 minutes here of discussion, please.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Vice Mayor Devers mentioned that we might be more successful if we asked for a part-time position and then sort of laddered up to a full-time position. Is that something that we should consider? I know part-time positions are not ideal, but maybe that's the only way we can get what we want eventually.
I think that's reasonable to think about in the letter. Like, do we say we need a full FTE, or we say?
Or like that there's
This was
options,
realistic.
option one,
Some
option two.
support.
Yeah.
We strongly support it. Yep.
That's not a bad idea to remind them that they did fund it. So we sent this letter last year,
Yep.
and just remind them again that it was previously funded, but a position was not hired.
It actually.
And I'd be asking them for a
Went away.
full-time person, or if you can't get a full-time, then provide an alternative. I think that's strategically smart.
Now, how did you say, or provide an alternative? Okay.
Yeah, by offering, suggesting in the letter, if we can't get a full-time, one FTE, maybe a half-time FTE.
Okay.
Also, maybe following Commissioner Devers' recommendation, maybe we should list more of the things that we're not able to succeed at. Because he seemed to indicate that if we would raise the level of awareness, I mean, we know Kathy can't do everything, but maybe we should put some bullet points of things.
I think that might be valuable for maybe Kathy, you and I, or you and I and Kay, to just sit down and say, here are 3 things that if I had 20 hours more a week from somebody, we'd be able to make X, Y, and Z advances on very quickly. What's the low-hanging fruit that just because of all the meetings I have to go to and all the other commitments that the city has made for sustainability. So I think we could do that outside. That's a great.
I don't think it would muddy up the letter. That letter is really good. It's
Yes.
just,
I think you have to be careful to how you word that so that it doesn't give the impression that Kathy's not doing her job.
right.
Yes.
You have to,
Okay.
if you're going to add something like that, just be mindful of how it will be perceived by others.
So, but would we want to say, though, sorry, just to make sure I get it right, here's what we think the city could do with another half FTE or another data analyst, or is that?
I think talk about it from a growth mindset, that we're growing our initiatives, we're growing our things that we're doing. And so Kathy's doing a good job, and then also we're growing.
Yes. Sorry, I got to keep looking back.
I don't know that,
Yeah, Dawn.
excuse me, I don't know that I agree with the approach of giving the idea of a part-time. I mean, they can come up with that, they can push back with that. In my opinion, we should start with the request for the full-time, and it becomes even more, important as, than it has been in the past. Would it be weird to say, to include the previous letter that was sent by Stan, just to, please see, we made this request last year as well, please see attached letter, so it's kind of, right there that they can see this is not our first ask.
I don't know.
It's up to you guys.
I think the timeline certainly in that first paragraph is getting longer, right? The first paragraph of that letter that was like, hey, you said you wanted to do this back in, 2022. Last year, that when we submitted this letter, that was only a year. Now it's 2 years. It's getting longer, but I'm okay also with including a sentence that, the SAB continues, as we have in the last year, continues to support or ask for that, rather than submitting the whole letter and confusing them with, I think it might be confusing if there's 2 letters, if we submitted them both, to have some language in there at the beginning, maybe, to that effect. But that's just my opinion. I'm open to others' thoughts.
So just something to think about. I'm just going to add a little bit staff perspective on what I see. Every single department of the city of Lawrence asks for FTEs every budget cycle, pretty much. And they've been doing this for years and years and years. So just putting a little bit of perspective that, I mean, the city's short-staffed in so many areas. I don't consider one more important than another, but just giving you that perspective, and then, you know, maybe focusing on what the vice mayor mentioned of, you know, what's the need and what's the urgency for this one.
I think they're right, though, that we need to be careful at threading the needle, that it doesn't make it sound like you're not bending over backwards to do a ton of things. There's just that many things that actually are urgently needed to work on.
Yep.
And, okay.
Yep.
Need and urgency. Other thoughts about the letter? So my hope would be that we could draft this and get a vote on it next meeting. I would say that it would be ideal if right, Kathy, I think,
Yep.
in terms of the timeline and budget, if we voted on this before our next meeting, or sorry, we vote on it at our next meeting, it will be drafted and out to everyone. And
Before.
I would even accept suggestions on the language in the draft document, if we could get it maybe in 2 weeks, that people could send to you, so that we could start compiling those, rather than, you know, we don't want to spend a bunch of our meeting, like me,
Right.
typing and changing things, or
Right.
Kathy doing that. Is everyone okay with that? Just because of the budget timeline?
Who's going to work on the draft?
I'll work on it. Unless you want to.
I'm not.
Right after you get back with your fish?
Yeah,
No?
yeah, then I'll be going to.
Yeah, then you'll be back at actual work.
And I'm happy to help you.
Okay. Well, that would be helpful if others are willing to go through it too, you know, put language in, modify language to thread the needle, so we can be as convincing as possible.
If you can send it out, you know, in a couple weeks, that'll give us a chance to read it and give you feedback.
Yep. Thanks, Nancy. We'll shoot for that.
I do, this is Kay, I do like the sentence that includes the ordinance 9744. I think it's important that at least we reference that
Is one of the things,
as one of the things that,
the need and the urgency. Yep. Thanks. 7:14, with a minute to spare. I did just want to say quickly, because we talked about composting so much, I'm the rep on the Food Policy Council. They are significantly interested in partnering with us on composting and have discussions at the county level. So I think that's an opportunity, especially if that becomes an element in what we're trying to do here from a county-city collaborative perspective. And they were very excited about all of the updates that Kathy helped me provide to them on the plastic bag ordinance. Frankly, a lot of people didn't know that we had the awesome website that we do, plasticfreelawrence.org. .org. Yes, that's what I wrote in chalk all over the city before it rained. I'm certain that I got the ending right. Anyways,
Oh my God.
since we didn't get a chance, if anybody has specific member items or especially future agenda items, we didn't get to that this last month, but we always are open. This doesn't have to be a closed process just between Kay and Kathy and I. If others have very strong feelings or want to talk about agenda things that we can bring up and have, you know, action items on or on specific things, please get those to us as soon as you can. We appreciate all of your personal time, unpaid personal time, at coming to these things. Thanks very much. Bye, Lauren.
Thank you.
YouTube.
Bye. You're asking me? My brain is like...